Alrighty, this is going to be a quick and dirty tutorial of how to make an object in Blender and put it into Voices of the Void. So, you start in Blender, obviously. I'm going to assume you know at least a little bit about Blender. I'm going to make a simple table. I know that they just added a coffee table, so this is a bit redundant, but for the sake of demonstration, that's just what I'm going to make. Let me actually delete all this. I want to... So, the first step to making something in Voices of the Void is how big you want something to be. So, I'll do like... I'll make my table 3 meters large. I don't actually know what's a good size to make a table, but Blender automatically has this meters, but if you just open the program, it'll automatically have these meters here as its units. If you can't see this thing, you just click on the add cube and you'll get more information. So you can make it whatever size you want. I usually just make cubes and scale them to be the same size as the cube that I want in order to scale it. And then when you're all the way done, you take everything in the scene and scale it up by 100. A centimeter in Unreal Engine in Voices of the Void is a meter in Blender. So if you don't scale it up by 100, it's going to be really tiny. But you can make sure exactly what size you want just by making sure that it's the same size here as you want it in the game, and then scaling it up 100 before you finish exporting it. So I'm going to turn on the X-ray so that I can go through and select everything from right here. And I'll make it a quick table shape. This isn't very hard. If you need to learn how to use Blender, do that separately. I'm not going to teach you how to use Blender, sorry. Something useful is to go here and increment it to vertex for snapping. And then you can snap it wherever you'd like. I'm just going to make a quick table shape. Oops. Okay, so I made my really shitty table shape. This is not great. Normally you would want to not have it like this, but it's fine for my purposes. Next thing you need to do is, of course, you want a texture for it. So you go here to Material, for the base color, you hit here, and you make an image texture. So now I need to make a new image, usually. You can call it whatever you'd like. I'll call it Table. You can make it whatever size you want. I tend to make it like... Oh, I just forget that it's... whatever. I tend to make it really small, like 124 by 124 pixels. But then again, I've never made anything very big. You'd probably want to make it bigger if you have an actual table. I'm used to making like plush size things. Oops, I closed it. So, make it whatever size you'd like. This is what I try and do to replicate the style of the game. Now you go to your... Well, first you might want to unwrap the UV, so select everything. Use to unwrap. You can do a Smart Project, a normal unwrap, light map pack. It depends on really what the model you're doing and what you want to do with it. I'll just do this and see if it does anything. I mean, that's fine. And you go to texture paint if you want to make it all the colors you want. I'll just like make the whole thing brown and give it a boring texture. Texturing is my least favorite part. I don't really like doing it. I'm just gonna make it all the same color. And like draw a cute face on it. Okay, so this is the very basics of how to make a model and put it into Voices of the Void. Now you take you take your entire cube, you scale it by 100, you hit the S key to scale, and you can just type 100 on your keyboard, and it will scale it by 100 on all 3 axes. Then you go to File, Export, and you go OBJ, Wavefront, and you go into Printer. The printer is located at Users, your username, app data, local, voices the void, assets, meshes, and then printer. You put all your OBJs in here. Call it table. Then you need to go to your image, and you need to save the image. Save as. And you once again go to printer, and you need to name it the same thing as your OBJ. So I name my OBJ table.obj, so I need to name this now table.png. Alrighty. So from here, now we need to open up Voices of Void. So you go through all your things, you find the when you want to print. What? The mesh is too big? Oops. Okay, don't do that. I remember now. I made it. Oops. Yeah, I made it 3 feet or 3 meters by 3 meters. It has to be less than 2 meters across. So I'll just scale it down. I don't know, that much. Now you can just export it as the OBJ again, put it in the same place, and hit refresh, it should change. Alright. Now you change, these probably don't matter. These are like upscaling of your texture maps, your various texture maps, and this is the physical material. This is basically the only one you're ever going to change. I'll make it wood because it kind of looks like it's made of wood. And then you hit print, and you wait for it to go. Okay, it's finally done. You can see my ugly ass table. Pfft. All right. So you can see that when I printed it, it got a couple of errors. Oops. One was that there's no PBR map detected. That's basically how shiny, metallic, or like see-through, kinda, your thing is. No normal map detected, that's just like little tiny bumps. And no complex hull collision. Or no... what was it? No custom collision used complexes custom hull. So what that means is you see this table, it like looks like it's got a space underneath it here, but objects won't go under there, they get stuck. So doing this is fine sometimes, but generally if your object is for anything other than like decor, and even then, you will generally want to make a custom collision. One, because it's like a more effective game memory. It's having to think less about all the collision, especially if it's like a plushie. It has to then, it doesn't have to think as much about the complex collision if you just make a simpler like box around it. And if you have something like this, the collision of a single collider can only be convex. It cannot be concave. So that means basically that any little holes like this are gonna basically disappear. You can do that in Blender as well though. Go back to Blender, let's just make it small again. If you select everything and hit mesh and convex hull, this is what the collision is going to look like. If you just take any mesh and hit convex hull on it, this is what the collision is gonna be like. But if we want to be able to put stuff under it, what you have to do is make your own custom collisions. And the way that you have to do that is by making additional objects in Blender. Generally, it's easiest to just use a cube. What you can do, again, it's useful to turn on snap to vertex, because then you can just go to edit mode, snap all these to each corner. And this is like especially pertinent if you've got a more complicated mesh than this, which is basically literally just cubes already. The snapping to the corners of your more complicated mesh would be more useful. And this one is kind of redundant to individually do this instead of just like making a cube and putting it in the right place. But hey, we're pretending. So you want to do this for every individual aspect of your model that's going to be different from each other in terms of concave, in terms of being concave. So for me, this means I want every single leg and the body of the table, which is this top part, to be a different collider. And to make a different collider, they have to be different objects. So cube, this is the mesh of our table. Cube 0, that's the mesh at the top of the table. So that's the collider mesh at the top of the table. Any object that you create after the first object is going to be treated as a collider. So cube 001 is going to be collider. You have to make a new cube, make sure it's a different mesh, a different object here, or else it's just going to be part of the same collider and it's going to get convex hulled again. So you take your next object, go into edit mode, you move it around to fit in the place you need it. Okay, so now I have cube, which is the main mesh, cube 01, which is the top, cube 02, which is a leg, 3, 4, and 5, which are also legs. For organization, I like to call the original mesh 0, and every single one after it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. You don't need to do this. All that it needs to do is that the visual mesh, that's what it is the first one that you ever created, and every single one after that is going to be a collider. That's really all that matters, but I like to do this, keep it organized. You could call it like visual mesh and then call the rest collider, like collider 1, collider 2, collider 3. Whatever works for you, so long as it works for you. And I'll just keep it like this because that's what I grew up with. So now obviously I scaled them back down, so I did put them back up. If you go into settings, game, refresh all the assets, I don't actually know if you need to do that, but you take this, you hold it in your hand, and you put it back down, and I think it should have the updated, someone told me this, I haven't actually checked it. It should have the updated data. Okay, no, I guess it doesn't. Yeah, see, okay, it's definitely not. Oh, wait, I forgot to export it, that's the reason why. Freaking idiot. Export. OBJ. Table OBJ. Okay, so see now, it says no normal map, no PBR, but it does have the custom collision, so now I can put shit under here. Great job. I'm not going to worry about normal maps and PBR because I don't like normal maps and PBR is annoying. But hopefully that's how you make the custom model and that's how you give it a custom collisions.